Hi guys, just a quick little video on something that I wanted to bring forth that I thought was pertinent to the moment. So basically, over the years I've been working with exploring different energy systems and their use, their effects, kind of like experimenting and discovering as I introduce different workshops, different models um, to myself and began to explore those. And basically, the first one that I had interacted with was the model presented from Gianvallo Melchizedek. And so you have the Merkaba, which is, the electric and the magnetic pyramids interlocking and creating the tetrahedron, and then spinning in opposite directions at a certain speed, and then really like visualizing that, focusing in on that, and then going into the heart space. And shortly after that, I did like so many workshops at once, so it's hard to distinguish which one created the biggest impact. But I think that workshop definitely, was part of the reason why I had such a speedy Kundalini awakening. Exploring that allowed me to really expand my field. And then coming to the understanding, like in retrospect, that the Gianvallo workshop focuses a lot on the heart. And the heart, kind of like the focus on the heart, sort of as the energy is coming in, it sort of bypasses the lower chakras, like the lower energy centers. And this creates sort of like we bypass doing the healing work on the body and the mental body, the emotional body. And then we sort of can, bypass that and then bounce out of body. But then what ends up happening when we hit the astral field is that we start attracting a lot of different things because we haven't done the healing on the lower dimensions and the lower layers. And so a lot of people have to go back and then do that. And so Kundalini experience can last like a really long time. And so you're sort of in the fourth dimension and up for, some odd years, if that awakens, and then, slowly coming back down, because you can't really go any further unless you do the healing work with the body on the molecular level, and allow those frequencies to really penetrate into the atoms. So that was something that presented itself over the years after that experience, and then having to deal with all of the different layers that are in the reality field that are working to shut down the activation of people as they expand their energy bodies. And then I focused on that for a few years because that's, what you end up being confronted with is where your attention goes. And so you have no choice but to focus on those things. And so focusing on that sort of brought me down certain paths that created more awareness about, the technologies being used to create basically the molding, the mechanics, the technologies that are being used from different people on the earth to change the molecular structure, to reverse any expansion or any proliferation of the energy body into other dimensions. So dealing with that, that was leading up to 2020, and so it's like just really focused on all the technology stuff, which still many people aren't aware of. But when you're confronted with it directly, then you have no choice but to kind of see what's out there and then do what you can to shift what's going on. And so that model was good up until a certain point, and then obviously as you awaken, you also have to do any healing work regarding your ancestral lineage, past lifetimes. So all of that information was also flooding in at the same time. So there was like a lot of things going on. And then I found that working with the closed loop system, which is basically the torus field, the toroidal model, that's brought forth by a lot of people, where you have like the vortex in the center, your energy spinning, and then energy spinning in, coming down from the right to the left, which is actually clockwise, and then the bottom coming up from the left to the right, counterclockwise, is a closed loop system. So it's really good if you're not looking to expand your field anymore, if you're not, actively participating and going further with any ascension work. But because it's like wrapping yourself in a warm blanket, right? You're just wrapping yourself in your own energy, and you're very contained, and you're actually limiting kind of what can come in, especially if you're not pulling energy in from above or below, right? If you're just sort of wrapping yourself, you can contain your own energy for a certain amount of time, feed yourself, and then do the healing work within that. It's like a kind of safe, secure blanket. But then after a little while, once that work is done, you're going to want to expand out again. And I just thought I'd also mention that, if people are working with that model and they are pulling in energy from above, from outside their own energy system, as well as from below, they're still working within a fallen system. So even if they astral travel, they project out, they're still working within a fallen system. So this is where you often see people, exploring in the astral field and coming into contact with all sorts of different grids of consciousness, super space programs, and that sort of thing, which can be all fun and exciting, but it's working within the old model. So it's not actually bridging outside of that fallen system. And so going back and then now exploring more of the working with the Merkaba, but it's not working on the flower of life, which is also coined, the flower of death, due to many reasons, and one of them being it's a closed system in itself. So if everything on the planet is in entropy, any models to expand energy fields that are based on systems of entropy are going to just create more entropy within your field, within your body. So bridging forth and trying to actually work with the more ancient models, which were, about true ascension, require us to work with geometry and mathematics that isn't bringing us back into these into the fallen system, which is the system of entropy. So this has been really interesting. I've just been exploring and how I bridged off from working with the closed loop toroidal field was that I went and I started to do some meditations and explore with places on the grid where the power was really coming from the core center, where things haven't been tampered with, and just allowing myself to naturally realign with those energies. The energies sort of recalibrate and reconfigure your energy body. And so, you go through all these symptoms and dizziness and so on and so forth, and then it just sort of happens naturally through symbiosis, coming into contact with this energy, and then your energy field begins to expand out again. And as it expands out, what ends up happening is you become more sensitized again to other things, other technologies in the reality field that are moving counteractive, like are, attempting at shutting down the expansion of the energy body. So, it's been a little bit of back and forth, because as I do this work and as I explore these different systems, there's different things that occur, and then I kind of bring it back to the drawing board and, okay, where do I go from here? I have learned that some people need to put up shields more than others, depending on, your functioning, like how your DNA, your blueprint of your DNA, the health of your body, your mind, sort of your what you're up against, your soul mission, what you've come here to do. Everybody's going to have different challenges, and there's going to be different things imposed on you that could be more challenging, depending on what you're trying to bring forth or what you're trying to do. So taking all this into consideration, and going back to what I was saying at the beginning, it is absolutely necessary to take care of like those first 3 layers before hitting the heart center, because the heart center, is the bridge out. But if the other 3 layers below it aren't being taken care of, the body, the mind, the emotions, like our power centers here in Midgard, on this plane, then what ends up happening is we can't really bridge the multidimensionalness from expanding into like bringing it truly into embodiment. And so there's all this like healing work that has to get done on these layers. And if again, depending on your DNA and what sort of challenges you're facing, have to do more body work than someone else, having a really disciplined practice, exercise routine, whether that's qigong or yoga, or just plain moving your body and releasing energy, doing sessions, acupressure, acupuncture, working with different systems, ancient systems that are based on vibrational medicine, sound healing, and such. Those are really, really good things to work to release things from the body, the breath, all the breath work stuff, and then really looking at your diet and making sure that you're bringing into your body what your body needs to expand as well, what every atom, every molecule needs to expand, will allow really the expansion here to happen. So from what I've observed, there's a lot of expansion happening, that people do these activations, they start expanding in the other dimensions, but then they're not expanding, like bringing that energy into physicality and truly feeling the body transform as well, or the thoughts and the emotions. So it all goes together. And as I readjusted with the natural grid system that links into the core of the earth, there's kind of like a twisting that happens, right? Because if everything's moving in one direction and then it opens up again, then you're going to feel whatever's blocked in the body come to the surface. And so, that's something that you have to work through. This is a new cycle, so all of this information that we're working with now has been, piling up through the experience that we've gained from the previous cycles. And so sharing this information is key, and also really putting into place like the knowledge, the stuff that we've learned. So working with this new system of expanding out, of like bringing the energies in from the primal field, and then making sure that they're integrating on all these different layers before moving on, not spending too much time, meditating out of body if you really need to focus on your physicality or on the emotional healing or what have you. Really just like integrating piece by piece what needs to be done, rather than rushing things, because that's again with the left-hand path, the quick path. That's a path that I took. I just like boom, 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 activated all this stuff, and it is very chaotic because things activate so quickly. And usually when you go to these workshops, you are not given the information. You're told kind of like the mechanics of like, okay, how to activate different things, but you're not told about the things that you'll encounter. That's something that, I've really noticed is there's hardly any information on what you'll encounter, like hardly any information on the negative aspects that you'll be confronted with afterwards. It's more focused on the mechanisms and the mechanics themselves that do the work to open your field up. So learning about all this stuff, like the things that you'll be confronted with, learning about like the different layers, how you can't just like bring in the energy and then expand out into the astral. You'll still be confronted with anything that's caught like in the mental, the physical, or the emotional body. You're going to bring it with you. And essentially what we want to do is heal those lower layers so that we can bring the higher frequencies into this plane. So, so I just thought I'd touch on this quickly, just a short little video. And now that I'm working, now that the earth kind of recalibrated my system, everything got turned around, so I'm just working on integrating things that I need to do in order to expand more here, like within my body, within the physical body, and also to provide information for people who are going through this process and why it's so important to look at the different models and what they do, what a closed loop system is versus a dead system. Like if you're working with a Merkaba that's spinning all in one direction, that's a dead system, because it's not being balanced with the magnetic and the electric. Like, I don't know why people are still working with these systems, but I see it. I see teachers even, promoting these systems, and that's a dead system. So I highly recommend looking into the different models, looking into what they do, and exploring for yourself, experimenting with yourself, really asking questions, and then allowing the universe to bring that information forward to you. And then exploring, not just sticking with one system. Like, if you're not getting any results from one system, or you're not coming into greater wisdom or insight on your own personal journey in terms of development, or you're only focused primarily on one aspect, which is like, moving beyond having mystical experiences and stuff like that, then you want to really look at the differences between the system and potentially explore between these systems and what they're doing. Because there's a lot of beautiful people with amazing activations, but if they're working still within the fallen system, then they're not going to be able to bridge any further past, where they are now in terms of like ascension and embodiment of these higher energies. So I hope that's helpful to everybody. I'd love to hear back from different people on this sort of thing, and watch how this ripples out. Wishing everyone an awesome May, and take care.